So, you want to learn how to solve the square root on paper without a calculator? Great. So, firstly, I just need to point out that if somebody gives you a square root where there's a negative number after the square root, like inside of it, then you've got an issue because you're playing in the imaginary ballpark. Now guys, just to explain exactly what this means, imaginary numbers are numbers man has invented, gotten angry at, lost sleep over, cried about. They are numbers they'll never see, touch, or even grasp in the real world. Why? Because maths. And yet, they appear when you put that negative number just underneath. So if you've got a negative number, you've got a problem. So let's come bring us down into the real world. Back to where things might be a bit more useful for us. Here I'll show you how to solve a square root without a calculator. So now this is our template for solving it. You could use something else, but pretty much everyone agrees that this way works. To begin, let's solve a classic, the square root of 2. Just place your number at the top of the template where I place mine. The more zeros that you have after the decimal point, the more precise your answer will be. Here I have 4 zeros after my decimal point. But if you do add any more zeros, you need to add them in sets of 2. Then what you need to do is go from right to left and put a line over every pair of digits until you get to the end. Now to begin, we need to look at the number on the far left with the line over it. If there's a line over 2 numbers on the far left, then we'll count that as one number. Now we need to look at all the squared numbers and see which is just under the number we're looking for. For us, 2 times 2 is 4, and that's too high. So the one just under it is 1 times 1, which gives us 1. So guys, now this is exactly what it's going to look like for now. But this may look a little bit intimidating at first, but I'll explain it. The number on the top is where we have uncovered our square root. It's where we're decrypting it, if you like. On the left, that's the number that we're timesing it by. And for us, as we did 1 times 1, that's why 1 is there. And next to the actual 1, that's underneath the 2, that is the result of the 2 numbers times together. For us, 1 times 1 is 1. So I put 1 here. But for example, if you're using 14 and you chose 3 times 3, then you'd put 9 under the 14. Now we just simply need to subtract the numbers. So 2 minus 1 is 1. And in the area where you've descripted your square root, you need to times whatever's in there by 2. And the answer that it gives you will give you the number for the next line. Right, so guys, now you just need to bring down the next pair of digits, and if you pass the decimal point, place the decimal point in your square root answer. Now, I know what you're thinking, and don't worry, these two A's are just to tell us that whatever number we choose must be identical. So what basically saying is 20 watt times watt is just under 100. If we look at our example here and we try 23 times 3, that will give us 69, which is lower than 100, but we need to see if there's anything closer. Here we have 24 times 4, which gives us 96. It's unlikely that there's going to be anything closer to 100 without going past it, but we'll try 25 times 5 and see what that gives us. As we can see, 25 times 5 gives us 125, which is above 100, so we cannot use it. Let's go back to 24 times 4 and use the number that it gave us. So we just simply need to place the 96 underneath the 100 so that it can be subtracted. And as the closest number that we found was 4, we need to put this into our square root and also make it replace the A. Remember, the A is just a placeholder letting us know that the two numbers need to be identical. Here we just need to times the number that we found by 2. Ignore the decimal point, and so 14 times 2 is 28. Now just bring that number down to the next line and place it next to the A. Remember guys, the A is just a placeholder, so this is basically asking us 280 watt times watt is just under 400. So if we have a look at the example, we can see 281 times 1 is equal to 281. And now if we do 282 times 2, it is equal to 564, which is higher than 400. So we have to go for 281 times 1. And so we just need to replace the two A's with the number that we found and make the 400 subtract the 281. What we need to do is bring our 1 up to the top into the area where we have started to decrypt the square root of 2. Now then guys, what we need to do is grab the numbers that we have there, ignoring the decimal point, and timesing them by 2. Now we need to bring that number down to the next line and place it next to the A. Here I've just subtracted 281 from 400 and brought down 2 more zeros so I can go further inside of this equation. So now we must figure out 2820 watt times watt is just under or equal to 11,900. Here I've started with 1 times 2821, and it's pretty far from where we're trying to get to. So let's try 5 times 2825. Now that's given us 14,125, which is too high. So let's try 4 times 2824. So now that has given us 11,296, which is the closest that we'll get to 11,900 without it going past it. So that's what we'll use. And because the number that we found was in fact 4, we need to go ahead and replace those a's with the 4 and go ahead and place the 4 up in the square root decryption area. See, I'm not going to go any further with this equation, but as you can see, I've managed to find a number that is 4 digits after the decimal point. Alright, so let's clear the board and try a new example. Let's go ahead and do the square root of 2,332. Starting from right to left, make sure you put a bar over every 2 digits. Next, the digits that are on the far left, the 23, we need to see which number times the same number is equal or just below that one number. And as you can see, we have 4 times 4, which is equal to 16, and 5 times 5, which equals 25. 25 is too high, so we need to go for 4 times 4. Now, because 4 is the first number that we found, that is what we need to put inside of our square root decryption area. And because 16 is the number of 4 times 4, we need to place that underneath 23 for it to be taken away. Next, we need to take whichever number we have in our square root decryption area and times it by 2. Next, we need to bring that round to the next line, place it next to the A. And now we need to figure out exactly 80 watt times what is just under or equal to 732. Now, as you can see on the example on the right, 89 times 9 is 801, which is too high. So if we go down to 88 times 8, which equals 704, we found the number we're looking for and the next digit in our equation. As you can see, I've brought it to the top. Now it's inside of the square root decryption area, and it's also replaced the A. Now, to go any further, we need to add a decimal point and 2 zeros. So remember, if you add a decimal point, always add that to the square root decryption area and bring down the 2 zeros. Next, we must multiply whatever is inside of the square root decryption area by 2, which gives us 96. Next, we must bring down the 96 to the next line and place it next to the A. So now we must figure out 960 watt times what is just under or equal to 2,800. So as you can see on the right in the example, I've done 962 times 2, which is equal to 1,924. Now if we try 963 times 3, it will give us 2,889, which is too high. So we need to go back down to 962 times 2. We need to make the 2 replace the a's and bring the 2 up to the square root decryption area. Now guys, that's as far as I'm going to go with this one square root decryption, but we have managed to decrypt the square root of 2,332 to 48.2 without a calculator, I might add.